I wasn't supposed to be there that late. The sign outside her little bookshop said closed at 8, and the street was already empty, the kind of quiet that makes your footsteps sound like mistakes. But she'd texted, "If you're still around, I could use help moving a few boxes." I told myself it wasn't a big deal, just helping someone I barely knew. Inside, the smell hit me first. Old paper, faint perfume, dust warmed by the yellow light above the counter. She stood behind it, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned back like she'd forgotten about it hours ago. The kind of tired that looks good on some people. "You actually came," she said, and smiled like she wasn't sure if she wanted me there. I shrugged. "You asked." She gave a small laugh, soft and dry. "I do that sometimes." The boxes weren't heavy, but she kept insisting on helping, brushing past me, her arm occasionally grazing mine. She had this calm way of speaking, every word measured, not slow, just careful, like she didn't want to waste breath on anything she didn't mean. When she reached for the last box, her hand slipped, and a stack of old hardcovers spilled across the floor. She knelt to pick them up, and I crouched beside her without thinking. Our hands collided on the same book, The Winter Guest. She didn't pull away. Not immediately. For a second, I swear, everything else went quiet. The hum of the ceiling fan, the city outside, even my pulse. She looked at me then, not the casual glance people give when they meet eyes by accident. This one stayed. It searched. Her eyes were green, but not bright. Muted, like sea glass left too long in water. She finally blinked, set the book aside, and stood. "You can leave that one," she said, voice suddenly clipped. I almost made a joke, something about how dramatic she sounded, but it didn't feel right. Instead, I just nodded and watched her tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. We finished stacking the rest in silence. The kind that isn't uncomfortable, just heavy. Afterward, she poured 2 glasses of water from a carafe and handed me one. The rim of her glass caught the light when she took a sip, and for some reason, I couldn't stop watching her throat move when she swallowed. She noticed. Of course she did. Older women always notice. "So," she said, setting the glass down, "what do you do when you're not saving bookstores from collapse?" I smiled. "Mostly cause collapses." That got another laugh, this one easier, lighter. She leaned back against the counter, studying me like I was a question she didn't want to answer yet. Then she said it. "You should come by again. Maybe tomorrow. There's still plenty to sort through." Something in her tone wasn't casual, but I couldn't tell what it was. I wanted to ask why me, but I didn't. I just nodded, trying to seem unfazed. When I stepped outside, the air felt colder than it should have been. I walked to my car, but before opening the door, I looked back through the window. She was still inside, standing exactly where I'd left her, one hand resting on that same book, The Winter Guest. I don't know what that meant, but I've been thinking about that look ever since. The one that said she'd already decided something I didn't understand yet. She didn't expect me to show up again. I could tell from her face. The second evening, the shop lights were already dim, the air thicker, warmer, the kind of quiet that hums in your chest before anyone says a word. "You actually came back," she said again, same tone as last time. But this time her smile didn't reach her eyes. I set my backpack down. "You said you needed help." I say a lot of things. There was something brittle in her voice, like a joke that didn't want to be funny. She turned away before I could answer, reaching for the counter where a half-finished cup of tea sat beside a stack of receipts. We worked without much talking. She sorted through shelves. I lifted boxes, filled silence with the shuffle of paper and the sound of her bracelets tapping wood. The air smelled like cinnamon from a candle she'd forgotten to blow out. Every few minutes, I'd glance up. She moved like someone trying to stay invisible, efficient, graceful, but careful not to look directly at me. At one point, a gust of wind from the open door scattered a few pages off the counter. She reached for them too quickly, the papers fluttering to the floor. When I bent down to help, I caught a glimpse of her hand trembling slightly as she pressed them together. "Cold?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She shook her head. "Just tired." But the pause after just said more than the word that followed. That's when I noticed the small things, the faint line around her mouth from holding in words, the smudge of ink on her finger, the tiny sigh she gave when she thought I wasn't listening. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She just looked human, the kind of tired you don't fix with sleep. When she finally sat down on the stool behind the counter, she rubbed her temples, eyes closing for a second longer than normal. I stood there, pretending to check the stock list, but really just watching the way her shoulders rose and fell. "Long day?" I asked. Her eyes opened. For a moment, she seemed to forget how to mask herself. "Long year," she murmured. Then she smiled faintly, like she regretted saying it. "Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's fine," I said quickly. "You don't have to explain." She looked at me then, really looked. "You're too young to say things like that. I've had a long year too." That made her laugh. Quiet, unguarded, like something had slipped past her defenses. She leaned forward on her elbows, chin resting on her hand. "You shouldn't keep coming here," she said softly. "People will start to wonder." "Let them." For a moment, the silence thickened, warm, uncertain, electric. The kind that sits between two people who aren't supposed to think what they're thinking. Then the candle flickered out, and in that tiny dark, she whispered, almost to herself, "You really shouldn't." It was raining hard that night. Not cinematic rain, just the kind that seeps into your clothes and makes the world smell like wet concrete and regret. She'd texted earlier. "Power's out. Can't close up alone. If you're around." I was already outside her shop before I realized how fast I'd come. Inside, candles again. The flickering kind that makes shadows dance too close. She sat behind the counter in a loose gray sweater, hair damp, cheeks flushed from the cold. The whole room felt softer somehow, smaller, quieter, like the world had shrunk to just the two of us and the sound of the storm. "You didn't have to come," she said, voice low but not unhappy. "I wanted to make sure you weren't stuck here alone." She smiled faintly. "You really don't know how dangerous that sounds, do you?" I didn't answer. I just took the flashlight from my pocket and started checking the fuses behind the counter. She stood close, too close, handing me batteries, brushing my arm once, maybe twice. Each time it felt like a question we both pretended not to hear. When the lights flickered back for half a second, we both looked up. She laughed softly, that tired, accidental laugh that always caught me off guard. "You always show up right before things start working again," she said. "Or maybe things just work when I'm here," I said before I could stop myself. The silence after that wasn't comfortable. It wasn't heavy either, it was aware. She leaned against the counter, studying me. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I might start believing them." That stopped everything. Even the storm outside seemed to hold its breath. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. Mark, home. She saw me glance and flipped the phone face down. "Someone waiting for you?" I asked quietly. "Someone I used to wait for," she said, and looked away. I wanted to say something, anything, but I didn't. The air between us was too fragile to touch. Instead, I sat down on the stool across from her. She poured tea for both of us, hands steady now, voice steady too. But her eyes, they weren't. They kept flicking to mine like she wanted to tell me something and couldn't. "I shouldn't be this comfortable with you," she said finally. "Then stop." She smiled, small, sad, knowing. If it were that easy, I would have already. Another gust of wind slammed against the window. The candles trembled. She reached out without thinking. Her fingers brushed mine on the table. Neither of us moved. Her breath caught. Mine did too. Then the power snapped back on, harsh white light flooding everything. She blinked, pulled her hand away, and said, almost to herself, "I think we just lost power again." But she wasn't talking about the lights. The next night, neither of us planned it. She texted about an invoice she couldn't find, something simple. I showed up anyway, pretending it was just about the paperwork. It wasn't. We both knew that. The shop was quiet again, lights low, the storm finally gone. Everything smelled faintly of the rain that had soaked into the walls. She was behind the counter, hair tied up this time, glasses sliding down her nose. "You're getting predictable," she said, without looking up. "So are you," I said. She smiled at that, but not the kind that reaches her eyes. "I thought that was what you liked." "I don't even know what I like anymore." That hung in the air too long. She set down her pen, finally meeting my eyes. There was something in her gaze I hadn't seen before. Not flirtation, not distance. Just exhaustion. The kind that comes from holding too much in. "Why do you keep coming here?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. I watched her hands instead. The way she fiddled with the corner of a receipt, tearing it without noticing. "Because I don't know where else to be." Her breath hitched. "That's not fair. I'm not trying to be." She turned away, walked toward the shelves. "You're too young to look at me like that. And D, you're too careful to admit you like it." Her body went still. Not frozen. Just still, like someone trying to keep their balance on thin ice. She turned, leaning against the bookshelf. "You think this is a game?" "No. But I think pretending it isn't is starting to hurt." Her eyes softened for a second, then narrowed again. "You don't know what you're doing. Neither do you." That stopped her. The silence after that felt heavier than anything we'd ever said. The distance between us wasn't even 3 feet, but it might as well have been a mile. She took off her glasses, rubbed her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice had that quiet tremor that comes before honesty. "I can't keep having these nights with you," she said. "They make me remember things I've worked too hard to forget." I didn't know what to say to that. I just nodded slowly, the kind of nod you give when you understand something you wish you didn't. She sighed, then whispered, "You make it too easy to feel seen." That hit somewhere deep. I wanted to tell her that she wasn't supposed to be invisible in the first place, that I didn't mean to cross whatever line we'd drawn, that I just liked who I was when she looked at me. But none of it came out. We just stood there, the kind of silence that presses against your ribs until it hurts to breathe. Then she said, barely audible, "If you keep coming back, I won't be able to pretend anymore." The first day, I told myself she was busy. The second, I tried not to think about it. The third, I found myself parked across the street from her shop without meaning to be there. The lights were off. A cardboard box sat by the door with her handwriting scrawled on top. "Donations." Before I could decide whether to leave, her car pulled up. She stepped out wearing a long coat, hair tied back, no makeup. She looked older somehow, not in a bad way, just more real. When she saw me, she didn't look surprised. "You always show up when I least want company. Then maybe that's when you need it most." She sighed, unlocking the door. "I'm sorting some things. If you're going to stand there, you might as well help." Inside, the shop felt different, stripped down, half-empty shelves, dust rings where books used to sit. She moved slower tonight, quieter. Something was off. "What's going on?" I asked. "Just clearing out old things," she said. "Some of these belong to my husband. I should have done this years ago." That word, husband, landed heavier than I expected. I'd never asked. She'd never told me. She opened one of the boxes and pulled out a small photo frame wrapped in tissue. It was her, maybe 15 years younger, standing beside a man with sunburned cheeks and a grin too wide to fake. He had the same kind of eyes I do, restless, searching. "You look happy," I said quietly. She nodded once. "He was a mechanic. We met when my car broke down." "Funny, right?" I tried to smile. Maybe I'm just continuing the tradition. That got a small laugh, but her voice cracked halfway through. "He died 9 years ago. Heart failure. One of those things that doesn't sound real when you say it." I didn't know what to do with my hands, so I just shoved them into my pockets. "I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't know him." She set the photo back in the box, her fingers tracing the edge like she was memorizing it one last time. Then she looked at me, eyes soft but sharp. "You remind me of him sometimes. The way you don't talk unless it matters. The way you look at people." It wasn't a compliment. It was a confession wrapped in warning. I wanted to ask if that's why she let me keep coming back, if I was just a reflection of something she'd already lost. But the words caught somewhere between my throat and my chest. She must have seen it, because she stepped closer, close enough for me to smell the faint citrus on her coat. "That's the problem," she whispered. "You make me forget he's gone." The box slipped from her hands, landing softly on the carpet. Neither of us moved to pick it up. I didn't mean to go back that night. But grief has a strange gravity. It pulls you toward the things that hurt the most, the things that almost make you feel alive again. The shop was dark except for a single lamp near the window. She sat on the floor surrounded by half-packed boxes, her knees pulled close, hair falling loose over her face. She didn't look up when I came in. You don't listen very well, do you? Not when you tell me to stay away. Her lips twitched, a flicker of something caught between irritation and relief. You shouldn't see me like this. I already do. That broke whatever wall she was still holding up. She let out a small laugh, sharp at first, then softer, almost like she was embarrassed by her own honesty. I don't know what this is anymore, she said. Neither do I. We sat there in the half-dark, words slipping through the cracks like rain through an old roof. No more pretending, no more borrowed tasks or excuses. Just two people who'd run out of ways to hide. She leaned back against the shelf, eyes tracing the ceiling. You remind me of what I used to want, she whispered. Before everything became about surviving the day. I didn't know how to answer that, so I didn't. I just moved closer, slowly, until our shoulders almost touched. The quiet between us wasn't heavy this time. It was gentle, the kind that forgives. After a while, she said, you make me feel like I still have time. I turned to her. You do. She smiled then, small, unsteady. You shouldn't say that unless you mean it. I wouldn't say it if I didn't. Her breath caught, but she didn't pull away when I reached for her hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling a little. She didn't tighten her grip. She just let them rest against mine, skin against skin, quiet and alive. It wasn't passion. It wasn't confession. It was something simpler, a moment that asked for nothing except to exist. After a while, she said, this will ruin us, you know. Maybe, I said, but maybe we're already too far gone for it to matter. She looked at me then, long enough for everything unsaid to pass between us like static. Then she exhaled, leaned her forehead against my shoulder, and whispered, don't move. I didn't. The lamp buzzed faintly. Somewhere outside, a car passed, splashing through leftover rain. Inside, the world stayed still. No promises. No goodbyes. Just two people breathing in the same fragile space, both knowing the line between what's right and what's real had already disappeared. And somehow, that silence, the kind we'd both been running from, finally felt like peace. It's been months since that night. The boxes are gone now. The shop is different, brighter, less haunted somehow. She painted the walls a softer color, changed the shelves around. It doesn't smell like dust anymore. It smells like beginnings. I still stop by sometimes. Not every night like before, just enough to remind myself that some things don't have to end to change. She always greets me the same way. A quiet smile, a small nod. Like the space between us is sacred now, something we both promised not to disturb. We don't talk about that night. Not directly, but it lingers, quietly, like the faint scent of her perfume that still hides between the pages of a book she once handed me. There's no label for what we became. Not lovers, not strangers, just two people who found each other at the wrong time and didn't run from it. Maybe that's all love really is, not a promise, just a recognition. She laughs more now. Sometimes, when she forgets I'm watching, I see her tuck her hair behind her ear in that same absent way she used to when she was nervous. It still gets to me. As for me, I learned that not everything you feel has to be fixed or defined. Some emotions aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be lived through, like storms. She once told me I made her feel like she still had time. I think she was wrong. I didn't give her time. She already had it. I just reminded her what it looked like. And maybe she did the same for me. Sometimes, when I lock up the shop for her, I catch her standing near the window, watching the street the way she used to watch the rain, calm, distant, but alive in a way she wasn't before. We never said goodbye because there was nothing to leave behind. The story just settled, like dust after a long day, quiet, final, unspoken. Every now and then, I still think about that first night. The stack of books, the accidental touch, the silence that said more than words ever could. It started as nothing, just a favor, just a spark. But looking back, I think we both knew what it was, even then. Something unplanned. Something neither of us deserved, but both of us needed. And that's the part no one tells you about love. Sometimes it doesn't arrive to stay. It just stops by long enough to change you. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?